Okay, so now I gave you my written statement. So now I'd like to read this written statement. This is a response to the residency challenge. Now comes Barbara Eichinger in the above titled manner and states the following. Mr. Wernig's challenge, contained in his letter of February 27, 2012 to the town of Guilford, is a political stunt and filed in bad faith. He's a well-known advocate against my political beliefs and used the supervisors of the checklist and the press in an attempt to affect the outcome of the March 13, 2012 town elections, where I was seeking a position on the Guilford Budget Committee. Mr. Werning did not contact me first with any of his questions concerning my residency, but instead called a press conference with the supervisors of the checklist March 3, 2012 meeting. Mr. Werning did not invite me or attempt to notify me of his challenge. And I see that he is not even here today. Mr. Werning opposed my candidacy for the Guilford Budget Committee. Mr. Wernig's evidence is hand-picked and anecdotal in nature. He has neglected the hundreds of hours and numerous newspaper articles about my civic and political efforts in the town of Guilford. In addition, he ignores the fact that 2 of my children also reside in Guilford and are registered voters here. He did not challenge their residency, only mine, because he disagrees with my political beliefs. Additional facts are as follows. I've been a resident of the town of Guilford since 2008. I filed my residency with the Department of Motor Vehicles on September 11, 2008. This was reaffirmed in March of 2010. I've notarized documents to prove this, and I've provided those to you. These documents contain personal information and are not to be made part of the public record. However, I can eradicate them, some of the information. My letters to the Bedford, New Hampshire Planning Board dated October 18, 2010 and December 1, 2011 was an attempt to help Dorothea Carter, who was an elderly woman in need of money for her health care. She could not sell her 2 lots separately, thus her family sought out my help upon finding my website. The mailing address of the website is 36 Old English Road in Bedford, as this is the credit card billing address used to pay for the website. And I've shown you that the invoices were indeed addressed to Guilford, but the payment was made by my personal credit card, whose billing address is 36 Old English Road. Nowhere in my letter do I state that I am a resident of Bedford. In fact, I state that I am a 16-year property owner and taxpayer here in Bedford. I clearly directed the Bedford Planning Board to my website, which states I am a resident of Guilford. It is unfortunate that Mr. Werning would try to use this volunteer work against me. It is also unfortunate that Dorothea Carter died before her property rights could be restored. Of course, this is of no consequence to Mr. Werning, as he tries to twist the truth in order to silence me. My November 16, 2010 letter to the Wyndham Planning Board in order to help another property owner who found my website shows the consistency of the nhpropertyrights.com website using the mailing address consistent with the billing address of 36 Old English Road in Bedford. Nowhere in this letter do I state that I am a resident of Bedford. The Union Leader article that Mr. Werning includes contains one mistake. It states that I live in Bedford. I do not. I co-own property in Bedford, New Hampshire with Mr. Edward Eichinger. This mistake was made by the reporter. Often reporters make mistakes. You could see last week that it was reported that we were meeting with the Attorney General. We were not meeting with the Attorney General. We met with the Deputy Secretary of State. So occasionally mistakes are made in the news. Upon seeing this mistake, I immediately phoned the reporter and sent email to the newspaper editor. The article does clearly state that I am a resident of Guilford. The Lakes region is known for its many summer residents, and as such, the reporter generalized my residency as a summer resident. Indeed, Guilford does have hundreds of legal voting summer residents. However, I reside in Guilford more than just the summer, approximately 7 months out of the year. This is evident from my frequent attendance at fall, winter, and spring town meetings and events. And if you look at those, what I did with my credit cards there, you'll see there were only 6 or 7 weeks in 2010 and 2011 where you don't actually see a credit card purchase made in and around the town of Guilford. My youngest daughter attends Bedford High School in Bedford, New Hampshire, and the New Hampshire Virtual Learning Charter High School. Mr. Edward Eichinger is a resident of Bedford and maintains his residency that our daughter can finish high school in Bedford. In addition, I travel extensively for business, and Mr. Eichinger does not. Thus, it makes more sense for our youngest daughter to reside in Bedford. A Google search of Barbara Eichinger Future Plus Systems will show the recent papers I have published and associated speaking events. My mailing address is 36 Old English Road in Bedford. I am part owner of Future Plus Systems Corporation, which has offices in Bedford, New Hampshire, and Colorado Springs, Colorado. The company has a global footprint with representatives worldwide. Mr. Eichinger maintains the company and family finances. and thus all billing, both company and personal, is mailed to his address. The company's physical address is 15 Constitution Drive in Bedford, New Hampshire. Thus, the company also has a mailing address that is different from its physical address. In addition, in 2010, my mail was stolen from my residence on Governor's Island, strewn all over the island, and my mailbox was damaged. Since that time, I have made an effort to have important matters sent to my mailing address versus my residency. There is no forwarding address for 558 Edgewater Drive, and I do receive mail to that address. This was also one of Mr. Wernig's pieces of evidence. Now, you will notice that you sent me a registered letter, notice of this meeting. That letter was not forwarded. If it was forwarded, you would have been notified that it was forwarded. You'll note that I signed for that here in Guilford, actually, Laconia. So there was no forwarding address at 558 Edgewater Drive. Hundreds of Guilford voters have mailing addresses outside of Guilford. Both 554 and 558 Edgewater are listed for rent on a weekly vacation rental site. Many residents who have houses on the waterfront rent them for a few weeks a year to pay the taxes. 558 Edgewater Drive, which is my domicile, was rented for 0 weeks in 2008, 2 weeks in 2009, 0 weeks in 2010, and 7 weeks in 2011. 558 Edgewater has not been rented in 2012. Requests have been made to rent 558 Edgewater, but have been turned down as I will be using the property during that time. 558 Edgewater Drive is only rented when I know in advance I will be traveling. An addendum lists the web references to my residency. Although easily found on the web, these were conveniently ignored by Mr. Wernick. I sent you those references, and obviously I printed out many of them. I claim 558 Edgewater Drive in Guilford as my residence for the 2010 census. In fact, when a census worker visited my house in April of 2010, I was present. Special request to the Census Bureau can verify this information. I believe that if I make the request, if you so need additional information, I hope that the Census Bureau would release that. I have testified and submitted written testimony in Concord in front of the New Hampshire House and Senate on several bills since 2008 and have always listed my residence as Guilford. And I gave you some of that testimony, and you can see that. From 2008 well into 2009, I spent hundreds of hours combing through old Guilford property files, old zoning maps, listening to planning board and zoning board tapes in order to unravel involuntary lot merging debacle that caused the lawsuit Sutton v. Eichinger, Guilford, and Governor's Island Club. I published a 130-page document, and I list the link there for that document. I didn't bother printing it out for you, okay, because that would be a couple of trees, okay? That unraveled the unconstitutional practice that Guilford had been involved in. I made this document available to the selectmen, the planning board, the zoning board, and many residents. The lawsuit filed by my abutter lasted from July 2007 to June of 2010. During that time, I spent numerous hours at Belknap Superior Court hearings, local arbitration hearings, and meetings with my Laconia-based lawyer. So I was here. In late 2009 and early 2010, I championed a reversal to involuntary lot merging in Guilford through a petition warrant article and spent hundreds of hours talking with residents, viewing affected properties, and rallying the vote for the March 2010 election. My petition warrant article was opposed by the Guilford Planning Board and by the selectmen. However, it was approved by the voters. Many Guilford property owners were very grateful for my efforts, and I still receive calls from them today, over 2 years later. My website was a catalyst for the statewide repeal and reversal of involuntary lot merging that I participated in 2010 and 2011 with SB 406 2010 and HB 316 2011. Many seniors purchased side-by-side lots as retirement investment. Thus, when the local government merged the lots, they lost most, if not all, the value of the second lot. I'm very proud of the contribution that I've made to the town of Guilford in this matter and to the entire state of New Hampshire. As a result of the above, I became a very dedicated property rights advocate and recently turned my attention to the excessive compensation packages that some local government employees receive. This is viewed as a threat. Thus, I have become a target for retaliatory efforts such as this challenge to my residency. In addition to my extensive work on involuntary lot merging, I was busy here in the town of Guilford building 2 new homes on Governor's Island. 558 Edgewater was substantially completed in 2008, and 554 is just now partially completed. I have spent many months on the job site reviewing all aspects of state and local permitting, waterfront permitting being extremely difficult. Building, contracting, inspecting, material selection, decorating, furniture selection, landscaping, etc. In addition to all of the above, I am Vice President of New Business Development for Future Plus Systems Corporation. I hold a bachelor and master's degree in electrical engineering. Future Plus Systems is an industry leader in high-speed bus interconnect analysis tools. I am often invited to speak at domestic and international trade events on the company's accomplishments. I often travel to customer sites worldwide to collaborate on new tools for the computer industry. My husband and I are a married professional couple. Many professional couples at some time throughout their lives have separate residences for various reasons. Mr. Scanlon, Deputy Secretary of State, acknowledged that this was not unusual. It is hard to imagine how someone would think that in view of all that I have been doing in the town of Guilford since 2008, that I could not physically be here. Mr. Wernick's evidence is a ruse and shows either his ignorance or his malice. Political donations and website billing addresses match the credit card that we use to pay for them, thus they contain my mailing address. All tax bills are sent to my mailing address. Mr. Eichinger is part owner of the property on Governor's Island. The tax bills for the property are addressed to both Mr. and Mrs. Eichinger and are sent to Mr. Eichinger's mailing address. Mr. Wernick is aware that mailing and legal addresses can be different and that this is perfectly legal, which attests to his malice in this case. The supervisors of the checklist must consider the relevant state law in this matter. And I will skip to the underlined area. An inhabitant's domicile for voting purposes is that one place where a person, more than any other place, has established a physical presence and manifests an intent to maintain a single continuous presence for domestic, social, and civil purposes relevant to participating in the democratic self-government. A person has the right to change a domicile at any time. However, a mere intention to change a domicile in the future does not of itself terminate an established domicile before the person actually moves. So I think the evidence is pretty clear that I have established a physical presence. I manifest to intent to maintain a single continuous presence for the purpose of domestic, social, and civil purposes. And I certainly do participate in the democratic self-government process here in the town of Guilford extensively. Now I'd like to move on to 654:2, temporary absence. A domicile for voting purposes acquired by any purpose in any town shall not be interrupted or lost by temporary absences, there from which the intention of returning thereto as his or her domicile. I am often absent, which you can see by my credit card records. I'm here quite a bit. Domicile for the purpose of voting as defined in RSA 654:1, once existing, continues to exist until another domicile is gained. Domicile for purpose of voting is a question of fact and intention. I have continually maintained a physical presence at my residence at 558 Edgewater Drive since 2008, albeit interrupted by temporary absences allowed by RSA 654:2. I have hosted many domestic and social events, such as family reunions, graduation parties, dinner parties, and have done none of these events in any other place. I have hosted political events such as the Ron Paul meet and greet, Stevens Forsyth meet and greet, Binder for U.S. Senate, and I have not hosted any political events at any other place other than my Guilford residence. Granite Grok contains the videos of these events, and a simple web search can prove these assertions. I have hosted neighborhood parties and civic events such as the Governor's Island Tennis Tournament and Granite State Kids Tennis Tournament in Guilford. I have never hosted any of these types of events in any other place. I coached the Lakes Region Junior Tennis Team both in 2010 and 2011. I have not coached teams in any other place. I am an advocate for small government. I attend numerous town meetings, school board meetings, hearings, and deliberative sessions. I am on the Guilford School District Strategic Planning Committee. I do not do these types of events or attend these types of meetings in any other place. Verification of this can be seen in the town report and in various town meetings. My two older children, Daniel and Lindsay, have also chosen Guilford as their legal address, legal residence, and when not in college are present in Guilford. I am also a prolific writer to the local newspaper and political blog sites in the Guilford area. I do not do this in any other town. Due to my business commitments, I travel frequently. Mr. Wernick is a public sector employee and has on several occasions publicly objected to my political small government views, and thus he wants to prevent me from voting and prevent me from running for political office in Guilford. His challenge to my residency was timed to coincide with the election when I first ran for public office. He has known of my political views in the past, yet he did not challenge my residency at any other time. In order to influence the election, he invited the press to a meeting of the supervisors of the checklist without inviting me or making any attempt to notify me. Instead of first presenting his questions about my residency to me, thus giving me a chance to respond, he presented them to the supervisors of the checklist and the press, without me being present or even being informed of his challenge. The Guilford Steamer did receive an invitation to from Mr. Wernick to attend his press conference, but they declined, and in a written email to me, the editor commented, "Good morning, Barbara. We did receive an invitation to Mr. Wernick's session with the supervisors the other day, but I did not send anyone, and I was not planning to give any ink to his challenge to your residency. While I can't say I agree with you on some of the issues at the forefront of this year's elections, you clearly consider Guilford your home and are deeply invested in the community's future. And I believe your willingness to volunteer yourself for public office should be commended, not questioned." Brendan Berube, editor, Guilford Steamer. Mr. Wernick's actions are an attempt to interfere with my legal rights to vote and run for office here in Guilford, and an attempt to defame my character. The evidence presented clearly represents that, more likely than not, Guilford, New Hampshire is my domicile. I respectfully request that the supervisors of the checklist affirm my place on the Guilford voter and dismiss this action in its entirety. And if you have any additional questions, ladies, I would be happy to take them.
Thank you for your statement. We appreciate all the information. The supervisors have certainly been giving this a lot of thought in the last 30 days. And certainly these RSAs are the ones that we do need to consider, and I'm glad that she has quoted them, and it's the same ones that are in those handouts that I mentioned.
Croc TV.